Hello guys, Crispy here and welcome back to another video. In this one, my friends, I'm gonna be testing a GeForce GTX 1660 Super 6GB GPU in Marvel's Spider-Man Remastered. This one is the HP OEM version of the card. We are running it with the latest Nvidia drivers as usual, and I'm not manually overclocking it. You can see all of its specs right here in Tech PowerUp's GPU Z, and over on the left, we're pairing it with a Ryzen 7 5800X3D and 32GB of RAM. These are overkill specs for a 1660 Super, I am aware, but you only need a CPU that won't bottleneck this card to achieve the same FPS. Let's get into it, shall we? Let's go over the settings now. I'm playing at 1080p resolution first, and we're also going to test 1440p and 4K, because why not, right? What? This is not what I said, what the hell? We're using TAA right here instead of SMAA and off because, well, although it looks blurry, the other ones look super shimmery, so there we go. And we're using the high settings preset as well. And will you look at that, guys? We just loaded into the game and it got to 69. There we go. That's absolutely perfect. This might very well be the perfect GPU to run Spider-Man Remastered. And here we are. Let's start counting our FPS, getting 90s, 80s, 70s and 60s, and it's probably gonna drop from 60 FPS. I already know it will because it did drop in my full review of the GTX 1660 Super that I posted last Sunday. So yeah, there we go. 54 frames per second, 56. It's not game breaking whatsoever though. You can still play very well like this. I would have fun at least. It's a single player title, so you don't really need very quick reactions, you know, and it's third person as well, so it doesn't really bother me too much that it drops every now and again in super intensive scenarios. Down here we're getting like 80s. I thought it would drop a little bit more, even touching 100 plus at times. Okay, so this is a little bit less intensive for a GPU to handle down there. But let's go to the Central Park area because that's the most GPU-bound part of the map. So no 60 plus in this part of the game at all. You actually would need to utilize some upscaling technologies like IGTI or maybe FSR2 to make it run a little bit better here and above 60 all of the time. It is possible though, but again, I don't really mind this, and I think the FSR implementation in this game is not really that great, especially at lower resolutions. At 4K it's fine, you know, but at 1080p you start noticing a ton of noise. I myself would probably play like this with a GTX 1660 Super. I think it looks great on high settings. There's no need to go up to very high, and yeah, overall it's a great experience, even with a couple of drops. Now, what if you don't care about the noisy image using FSR? Let's use that on quality here. It's FSR 2.1, so it's not the worst implementation, you know. And yeah, you can clearly see, by the way. Let me just go to a less detailed area so you can see it a bit better. Around Spider-Man right there, even with the sky background, you can see a lot of noise forming around him, and it's quite noticeable, especially when there is a lot more detail around you. So yeah, the good news is you do get those 60 plus all of the time, as you can see. So I guess you pick your poison. The YouTube compression is gonna wreck the Central Park area, by the way. It's gonna look really bad, and you can't really tell much of a difference probably between native res and the FSR 2.1 on quality because, well, again, it will wreck the image. But yeah, believe me, it does look quite a bit more noisy, but at least it gets 60 plus 100% of the time. There is one single part of the game, one single area where it drops a little bit more than the Central Park area, by the way, and that is when you're dropping from a huge building, looking at the entire city. It does drop slightly more than there, but again, that's one single scenario, and you're probably not gonna come across that very often. And even if you do, it just doesn't matter. You're dropping from the sky, you're not doing anything major that requires fast reactions and stuff, and yeah, just be advised, you will drop from 60 FPS in that single scenario. Also, that frame time graph is not perfect whatsoever. If you want to make it a lot smoother, all you need to do is lock your FPS. For that, I'll be using RivaTuner Statistics server right here, and I'm gonna set the frame rate limit to 60. That will cap the FPS to 60. It won't move from there, and you can see that the frame time graph is now completely smooth. It's a line, basically. Even at native resolution with a few drops here and there from 60 FPS, I would lock it to 60 just because like 90% of the time it will feel a lot smoother than the micro stuttering that you get without locking the FPS. And I'm sorry about the screen tearing here with 60 FPS locked. It's just because the capture card can't record with VRR enabled. It gives me a stuttery footage every single time. So we gotta live with this. But anyway, this is my recommendation. High settings, 1080p with or without FSR, whatever you want. Anyway, I just turned off FSR as well as the VSync, and we're gonna go up to 1440p. And here we go. This is 1440p at high settings. Oh boy, yeah, it's dropping into the 40s very often. But that doesn't mean that it's a bad experience, right? Like, I could still play the game absolutely fine like this, since it's a single-player title, once again. And it looks way better than 1080p, and I know a few people that do have 1440p monitors with the GTX 1660 Super or 1660 Ti. Now, yes, it does drop from 60 FPS, and it's more often than not below 60 FPS. I'm, again, very surprised that around here is getting 60 plus. Yep, it touches 60, but it doesn't go below it. Okay, 58 right there, 59. But again, it just doesn't matter. It's still a decent experience. It's not stuttering like crazy because of the lack of VRAM or whatever. And you could lock it to like 45 frames per second or maybe 40 to achieve that buttery smooth frame time graph and more consistent experience if you wanted to. VRAM wise, it seems to be enough. I mean, it might be swapping around with the RAM a little bit here. Some information that should be on VRAM will go into the RAM if you don't have enough VRAM, but it's not hindering the performance too much, I guess. Let's try it out with FSR 2.1 on quality next, and this should give us, once again, a lot better of an experience in terms of FPS, but again, I can still see a bit of pixelation around Spider-Man, although at 1440p it will look much better than it did at 1080p, because this is a 78% higher resolution in terms of pixel count than 1080p was. It will come down to your monitor size as well and the pixel density. If you have a 1440p 27-inch monitor, the PPI will be around 107, and it will look really good even with FSR enabled. But if you have a 1440p 32-inch, the PPI is going to be the same as a 24-inch 1080p, around like 91 or 92 PPI. And it will look very similar with FSR, and the noise will be quite noticeable then. Still, you can play it. As you can see, now we're gained about, what, like 10 frames per second, 15 at times, 5 around here. I guess it doesn't make much of a difference in this area, although it is enough for us to never dip down into the high 50s. Well, it's good. It still dropped from 60 FPS, of course, in the more GPU-bound scenarios like Central Park area. But most of the time now, you are gonna be above 60 FPS, and we gained about 10 frames per second on average. So it makes a little bit of a difference in terms of smoothness, and especially if you lock it to 60 frames per second. Maybe using the VSync, it will work quite well. I'm not gonna lock it in Rivet Tuner this time around. I just want to see the flatness of the frame time using the built-in VSync. It's not as smooth as before, as you can see. It's 60 FPS, but it still micro stutters like crazy. So you need a third-party app if you want to make it not micro stutter. But around here, it was also starting to drop from 60 FPS, wasn't it? Yeah, there we go, 54, 55. Yeah, this part of the city is really intensive for the GPU to handle as well. Lower 50s at times, ooh, even dropping into the 40s. So with FSR, I think 45 plus is what you can expect. And without FSR, I think like 40 plus most of the time. Let's go up to 4K. This one should be terrible. I'm actually gonna disable TAA this time around. No need for anti-aliasing at 4K. Alright, 3840 by 2160 TAA using high settings. It is, yeah, it is terrible. As expected, this is a 6 gig card. It's heavily swapping things around into the RAM. As you can see, VRAM usage is way lower than it was at the other resolutions. It is not completely awful. I mean, I can still swing around. If you want to take some screenshots, for example, it will be possible. That's about it. You can't really play like this, though. Now the stuttering is way more noticeable. You can see that the frame time is having a ton of issues, a ton of bigger spikes than what we saw at the other resolutions, and the RAM is still going up. Look at that. It is still trying hard to load in things into the VRAM, but it can't. So at 4K, I guess this was to be expected, right, with the GTX 1660 Super. Now, enabling quality FSR makes it slightly better, and at this resolution, I can still see a bit of noise, but it's way less noticeable. And it's getting 30 plus. I'm actually gonna restart the game just so it can start the memory allocation again. And here we are, back at it, 4K using high settings and FSR set to quality. The VRAM is now more utilized and that frame time is a bit more stable than it was before we restarted the game and after applying FSR 2. But I think in just a little bit it's gonna be the same as before, actually, because it will start swapping more things around. And I mean, I could still play like this. I think locking the FPS here to 30 would make it a pretty reasonable experience, console-like, you know, PS4 Pro, PS4, both of those consoles play this game at 30 FPS, if I'm not mistaken, and you could have that experience with better graphics. I am impressed right now. Just by enabling FSR 2.1 on quality, it put us above 30 FPS all of the time. That is really impressive. Holy crap. Oh boy, the optimization in this game is really nice. I'm actually gonna cap it to 30 FPS this time, okay? So we can see the smooth frame time graph. And that is indeed way smoother than before. Also, I will enable some VSync on half refresh rate, which is going to be 30 Hz, so we don't see a lot of screen tearing here, or any screen tearing. VSync introduces a little bit of input lag though, I can notice that for sure. But if you have a variable refresh rate monitor with FreeSync or G-Sync technology, it's going to be fine. But yeah, now we got rid of all of the stutters here, guys. And even here, which is super intensive, this scene right here, it is not dropping. Wow. I actually thought we'd need to use medium settings to achieve a 30 FPS flat experience all of the time at 4K. Turns out all you need to do is enable that FSR setting, and it's gonna stay above at 30 if you lock it all of the time. And this is a way superior experience than with unlocked FPS. Okay, oh boy, okay, it's starting to drop a little bit here in the Central Park area though, into the higher 20s. Nothing that an overclock of the GPU wouldn't offset, by the way, and probably most GTX 1660 Supers will come factory overclocked, so that's not a problem. I'm just gonna go ahead, set it down to medium settings, okay? And we're also gonna go ahead and set it down to 1080p again. Try it out at native resolution, see if we can get 60 plus 100% of the time with native res, and then go and do 1440p and 4K again. And I'm gonna restart, of course. What the hell? Remember, we were getting 69 FPS at the 1080p high settings preset. And now at 1080p using the medium settings preset, we're getting 100 FPS more. It still has a 69 on it, which is perfect. We gained a ton of FPS. At this point, by the way, I think you'd need quite a beefy CPU to achieve 100 plus. All right, maybe like a Ryzen 5 5600X will do it. I think my 5900X, which performs around the same as the 5600X in games that can't utilize a lot of CPU threads, which is the case with this game. We've been seeing like 20, 30%, maybe 40% CPU usage. Yeah, that little Ryzen 5 should be able to max out the 1660 Super with these frames. That is quite nice. Although, again, I would not use these settings because the high settings looked a lot better, especially in terms of reflections and stuff like that. At the distance, the reflections aren't even there in those buildings. Yeah, for example, this building right here, it shows some reflections down there, but once you are in the middle of the building and up, it doesn't show any reflections at all. That's the main difference I noticed between high and medium settings, and the reflections in this game do look really, really good on high, so I would just play it on high. Let's go ahead and play at 1440p next. And once again, I'm gonna restart the game just to make sure. Most of the times you don't need to do so. And at 1440p, we're getting 70s. That's quite decent, okay. It is definitely gonna drop though in the Central Park area, that's inevitable. But this is pretty good. It's again a bit better than what I was expecting. This is 1440p native at the moment. 60 plus FPS on a 6GB card. And with medium settings, not even lowest set. See what I mean by the 1660 Super? You can still provide a decent experience at 1440p. It can. Down in the Central Park area. Wow. It is not dropping from 60. It will, again, like once or twice. If you are on top of a huge building and take a look at the entire city down below, it will drop because it's really intensive. And we saw like 59 right there. But most of the time, it's still managing 60 plus at 1440p medium settings. All right, let's go up to 4K resolution next. Medium settings, gonna restart again. Oh, come on, mate. Give us one more FPS. Are you serious? You know what? You know what? I am actually gonna overclock the card just a little bit to achieve 69 there, okay? Well, like 50 hertz on the core clock should do it. Yes? Yeah, there we go. That is absolutely perfect. Okay. Okay. Unfortunately, inside of the game, it's going to become more intensive, whereas at 1080p, it became less intensive when we got inside of the game for some reason. Yeah, 40s around here. Textures do take a while to load at 4K res, as you can see. Or are they like this? No, they can't be like this. This looks awful. Absolutely awful, right? What the hell, bro? Ugh! Ugh! I'm gonna stop looking at that crap. It looks awful. Again. Alright, let's go ahead. Come on, Spidey. There we go. There we go. We can do this. Start counting our FPS. And down here, at least, it's still getting 30 plus. Frame time is not completely awful, you know, like it was at 4K high settings. And will it even drop from 30 FPS? Can we get like that 30 FPS locked at 4K native? This is the building that I was telling you about, by the way. Dropping from this building is the most intensive thing you can do, but it doesn't really happen very often, so I haven't really tested it. What the hell? It's not even dropping here. Seriously, man. Whoa, that is insane. That frame time went to hell, by the way, while dropping. But again, locking the FPS to 30 or even like 35 would be ideal for this experience here at 4K medium. We gotta go to Central Park, my friends. That's gonna be the ultimate test. I still believe it's gonna drop from 30 FPS, because this can't be this good, right? For 4K 30 plus all of the time at medium. What the hell? Okay, here we are. Ultimate test right now. 39. It dropped more in the other building, I think 34 right there. No way. It's not even stuttering a lot, you know. 45 FPS average and 31 1% lows. Always above 30. What? Oh my god. Okay. Enabling FSR on quality still looks pretty good again at 4K res. And it gives us 40 plus maybe? Let's swing around here for a little bit. Again, I'm so sorry about the YouTube compression in this part, but can't do anything about it, unfortunately. You can still see the FPS, so that's fine, and that's what matters, of course, in these videos. Yep, it's not even dropping from 40 right now. Wow, crazy stuff. You could lock it to 40 FPS with FSR on quality, or even like 45, and it won't drop from that too much. So there's that, my friends. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope it was informative to you and enjoyable to watch and entertaining and so on. And let me know if you have your minds blown as much as I do. Because I did not expect it to be decent at 4K, and it actually is. That's really nice. Thanks for watching. Catch you in the next one very soon. Love you all. Bye-bye.